I'm so excited to be here. We have a lot to cover today, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Hold on a second, and we'll do that big. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? I'm so happy to see at least your images. So today we're going to talk about how to get unstuck, and I'll go into what that even means, and also really going into changing your habits and how that can really be the first step in changing your life. So I'm Kelly. I'm an integrative health and nutrition coach. I'm also certified in NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which we'll go into a little bit more during our time together, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, and a hypnotherapy practitioner. I'm also a certified life and success coach. So all of that to say is I have a lot of tools in my arsenal to help you instill habits that help with your physical well-being, but also a lot of deep tools to help you make those personal and deep shifts so that you can really go out, identify and go after the things that you want. So today, hold on, let me just move this. So today we are going to talk about what it looks like to be stuck. We're going to go into how your mind works. And these are things that I wish they taught us in school, but when you really understand how your mind and your subconscious work, you'll start to understand why we stay stuck and why we find ourselves in certain patterns. And I'll start to teach you how you can begin to create change to get out of certain cycles that may not be serving you. I'll then give you the 4 habits that will accelerate your greatness into whatever that is, into really becoming your best self. And then lastly, the secret to true and lasting transformation. Sound good? I'm gonna take that as a yes. Hold on, where are you going? Okay, so when we talk about being stuck or in a rut, usually this means that we are out of alignment. We all have an internal guiding system, internal innate intelligence that knows what's right for our best self. And sometimes when we find ourselves in a relationship that may not be serving us, or maybe we're not feeling great physically, we're not taking care of our bodies, or maybe we're in a career that's really not supporting us, we are out of alignment with what our true intention is, right? To be our best self. And oftentimes this presents itself in physical forms. We might see that we're having digestive problems. You might be getting headaches, trouble sleeping. You might be carrying this extra weight that no matter what you do, you can't get off, low energy, hormonal imbalances. And oftentimes we think of these things as just physical. But what science is showing us is that there is a direct correlation between your physical body and your mental body and your emotions. And oftentimes when there are any type of disalignment, you experience many of these physical symptoms. In fact, it was me being a health coach and working with people, whether it was losing weight or gaining energy or working on balancing their hormones, that when we went and we started diving deeper, we got down to the core issue, which were where these imbalances were in their life. It can also show up mentally. So this can look like feeling anxious or unsettled. You're just tired and exhausted going after the things you want, and you just kind of don't have the energy that you used to, feeling or a sense of overwhelm, or even you've forgotten what lights you up. You know, you're just going through the motions and you just kind of lost that spark. Or it could even just be a simple sense that something is off. Any of these things. Can any of you relate to any of these things? I'll let you definitely engage in the chat, but I'm sure at some point we've all felt some of these things. And so what our goal is to get ourselves back into alignment. And when this happens, it's a beautiful thing. You feel like you have more energy, you're sleeping more soundly, you feel lighter, and in many cases you are lighter. Also, when you are in alignment, you've raised your vibration. When you are living in alignment and really being in tune with that most authentic part of yourself, your vibration rises, you are lit up, you notice that people are drawn to you. Mentally, you have a greater sense of calm. And what's also my favorite part is you start to notice these little synchronicities, right? When you say something, you know, the thing appears. You start to notice more and more of those in your life. You also feel more motivated and inspired because you're going after the things that are most meaningful to you. And for me, most importantly, which I really appreciate, is having this great sense of certainty. Going into a situation or with anything you do, you know you're on the right path and you have clarity and certainty and confidence on the path you're on and where you're going. So Does that sound good to you guys? Is that something that we all want? Let me open the chat so I can hear you guys or see you guys. Great. So that's really what we're aspiring to. So let's go on and talk about how the mind works and why is it that we find ourselves staying stuck and how can we begin to start breaking the cycle? So I know this looks complicated, but I will break it down for you all. So within our five senses, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, we are taking in at any given moment something along the lines of 2.6 million bits of information. Things that you're probably not even conscious of are coming in. Maybe it's the car driving past, or the weight of your body on the chair, or maybe there's the smell of flowers in the background. Whatever it is, your senses are always on and taking this information in. However, because we can't focus on 2.6 million bits of information at any time, our mind filters out information either through generalizing, deleting, or distorting, and we only actually consciously are aware of about 126 bits. So that's a lot of things. So let's talk about what that means. When we say generalized, this is when you're driving down a highway, you don't sit and say, oh, there's an oak tree, and there's a tree with green leaves, and there's a tree with one rotten leaf, and there's a pine tree. You say, I was driving down the highway, it was just a lot of trees, right? You generalized it. Oftentimes our mind will delete things. And so I don't know if you guys have ever done that test where they show you a basketball game and they say, how many people are wearing a red shirt? And then they take the photo away and say, okay, what color shorts was the bear wearing? You're like, there was a bear. Your mind will subconsciously delete the things that it doesn't deem relevant, right? It distorts things. So say I put on a shirt in the morning and it's like the only shirt I have because I haven't done laundry and I hate this shirt. And as soon as I walk out the door, someone's like, oh, nice shirt. The way I hear it, knowing I think this shirt is awful, is like, nice shirt. And I hear sarcasm because it goes aligned with what my mood is and how I'm feeling. So your mind distorts. So one of these three things are happening with the input that we're getting. And what happens is what's determining that are these filters: your time, location, mood, language, memories, values, identities. So time being, if I get a phone call from my mom at 3 p.m, I'm assuming she just wants to check up. But if the phone rings and it's 3 a.m and she's calling, I just immediately get nervous that something bad has happened. Location, that just means that if someone's like yelling or speaking very loudly to me in a library, I kind of look at them like they're crazy. But if they're speaking really loudly to me at like a concert, it makes sense. Your mood, we all kind of know this. Remember when you were young, you just knew not to ask your mom to like go on a sleepover when she's in a bad mood versus, when they're in a good mood. Language, it has to do with tonality, memories. A good example of this is my first memory of a pool was at a pool party where I fell in and drowned. When I think of pools, I will always have an associated to that memory and it will cause me to have a reaction to it. Decisions we made. So maybe when I was younger, I tried to speak and everyone laughed at me. And I made the decision that I am just not a good speaker and people are cruel. And that is a filter of how I now experience the world. Beliefs, maybe even because of that, I now believe I'm just not a good speaker, or that whatever it is, there's so many beliefs that we have that come from our upbringing, our parents, what we see on TV, like a good man is hard to find, or you have to work hard, twice as hard as everyone else to get half as much. We all have these beliefs. Our values. So if you value things like, I value being physically fit. So when I wake up, maybe the first thing I do is a workout. Conversely, if I value productivity, then maybe the first thing that I do is, grab my laptop. And then identities. This is really how we see ourselves, So maybe I've assumed the identity, I'm a shy person. So whenever we have these 2.6 million bits of information that are coming in through our five senses, they're all going to be generalized, deleted, or distorted based on these filters that we have that have, quite frankly, a lot of them have been constructed from the time we were between 0 and 7. We probably haven't even been conscious about when these filters were established. But the reality is all this information is going in and we're only letting in consciously to be aware of 126 bits. And that is what is creating our internal representation or our personal experience of the world. So let's use the example of being a public speaker, right? So if I've made the decision, I'm really not good at speaking, everyone knows they're going to all laugh at me. I have this belief that I just mess up my words. So when I find myself in front of a group of people to speak, maybe all that I see are the people that are scowling at me. And this in turn is going to create an emotion for me. So I might start being scared. I might start feeling really nervous. And then what that's going to do is that's going to create a physical sensation or a somatic state for me. So now I may start sweating. You may notice me hunch over. I'll start just getting really agitated. And then from that, I have certain actions or behaviors. So now when I start speaking, I may start fumbling over my words. I might start speaking really low. I may forget what I have to say. And also my vibration is lower. You will pick up on just that fear, that scared state. And so as a result of that, that is what I will have a very negative outcome, right? So I may not be able to connect as great, and people may not be interested in what I say. So now I've gotten this result that I was so afraid of. And that result then feeds the cycle. And now that's what I see and I hear. And it all just becomes this vicious cycle. And so that's one example, but we do this, it's so many things in our lives, right? So maybe we believe we're not fit and we don't have the energy to do exercise, or we just were never good at sports when we were younger. So we don't exercise and we don't get stronger. So we get the same results that feeds into that. And again, the cycle goes. So how do we break this cycle? Most everything you want is just outside of your comfort zone. So we have in our brains is a little more kind of brain science. So you have your prefrontal cortex, which is your executive brain, your reasoning brain. This is the part of you that's saying, you know what? I know I'm kind of stuck in this cycle, and I know that there's something so much more for me. And I want to make a change. I want to put myself expand what my current reality is. I want to make more money. I want to have better relationships. I want to feel more grounded. I want to feel happy. I want to feel at ease. And I know there are things I need to do to get there. So, right, that's your prefrontal cortex. But then you have your ancient brain, which is all about keeping you safe. This is from the time when we were like hunter and gatherers in the wild. It was essential to stay safe. And what safety is the familiar. Right? The familiar is safe. And so the moment that we start stepping outside of what's familiar to us, right, and start doing new habits and stretching ourselves to become the person that we ultimately want to be, there's this internal resistance. There's this kind of like, no, we have to kind of stay where we're safe. I love it. In RuPaul's Drag Race, they call it the inner saboteur. And so you have to realize that there is this kind of this push and pull, but this is where this notion of neuroplasticity comes. Our brains are designed to evolve and to grow. And there is so much, everything you want, everything that you desire that you don't currently have resides outside of your comfort zone. When we look back at that cycle, everything that you're currently doing is keeping you where you currently are. So by changing certain behaviors or habits, that is how you get different results. So let's go back to how the mind works, right? We talked about we could change some of our behaviors or habits to get different results. And the reality is that, I'm going to be honest, it does take an amount of willpower, right? You know, when I started the 5 a.m. club, my body was not like, we don't wake up at 5. That is not what we do. But I continue doing it now. It's second nature. But when you really want to create true and lasting transformation, the real opportunity comes when we start working with some of these filters, the filters that are happening at a subconscious level that are determining what we're seeing and what we're experiencing and how we are presenting in the world. And so let me go in a little bit further. So how we reprogram our minds to make the habits we want second nature is moving up the logical levels of change, right? So it's moving from just the environment, just your behaviors, and really moving into really getting deep on the subconscious level. Because as I mentioned, behavioral change requires willpower. And the reality is, and we've seen this through so many different experiments, we only have a finite amount of willpower during the day. So think of it as a fuel tank. So by the end of the day, if you're tired, if you're hungry, your chances of doing a behavior or anything that requires willpower really wanes. So that's another reason why I suggest when you are integrating new habits to do it in the morning before that kind of willpower fuel tank is gone. And we've all seen this. We've all kind of have made New Year's resolutions and we start off really strong, but it requires willpower to sustain. The reality is doing habits and sticking with them will ultimately get you results. Some people say by doing it for 21 days is enough to kind of create an automaticity. Others say 66, but the reality is as long as you're consistent, you will see the results. Now, if you want to create change in a way that doesn't require willpower and that really does become just who you are and it's happening automatically, the secret is your subconscious mind and really making this an automatic. It's almost like making the habits that you want, putting them on autopilot. So what it does when this is really integrated in your subconscious, instead of pushing against your natural way of being, right? Like I'm not someone that wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're working with your natural way of being. So it no longer becomes, I'm just going to try to wake up early. It becomes my purpose in life is to have personal mastery and to have and teach tools to other people so that they can experience personal mastery. And so waking up early, taking time to nurture my body, my mind, being strong, learning, this is intrinsic to who I am. So it's really when we start aligning to our purpose and goals and identity level that when you start really making shifts there, you notice a trickle down effect in every other area. And what's so fascinating is when we look back at those filters, when you start, remember, everything is being filtered by the goals we set, the values we have, the identities, all of those things, you're going to start seeing things that you haven't seen before. Because remember, your mind was using old filters. From those 2.6 million bits of information, you were only getting 126 based on old identities you may have held. Now imagine if you shifted those identities, what would be possible? So how do we do this? So this is actually, this is a long way of explaining what NLP is actually. This is why I became an NLP practitioner, because I noticed in working with clients and helping them reach their physical and mental goals, right? Like I want more energy. I'm feeling really down. I don't know why my hormones are a mess. I can't lose weight. Everyone knows the simple things. You should exercise, you should drink water, but it became very hard for them to do it. And we needed tools. I needed tools to support my clients in reaching their goals that would really work on a much deeper level. So the process is, and this is why I love NLP, is because it gives you those tools. So the first step is identifying your filters. So what are your beliefs, your values, your decisions, your identity? And this is also, I'll explain that later, but so figuring out what those filters are, then you also start to understand what are the paradigms, what are the programming, what was going on like between 0 and 7 when you're just pure subconscious mind and all you're doing is taking in from those around you, what you see on TV, from your parents, their relationships, what you observe, what they say to you. All of this is creating a framework of how the world works, how you see yourself, what you believe to be possible. And in many instances, that some of those things may not support you. It may not align with what the goals you have for yourself. So through NLP, you have the tools to let go of those stories and identities that no longer serve you and really start to adapt the identity and get clear on who you are and who you truly are and what it is that you truly want. So the tools and the 4 habits that I've given you, particularly in that reflect, is your first step to starting to peel back the layers, to starting to really investigate and spend time with yourself and nurture yourself so that you could start getting clear on what's most important for you. And I promise you, one, just by giving yourself this time, within even less than a week, you'll start to notice how you approach your days differently. But more importantly, a lot will start to come up for you. And I'm very excited for you because I think it's such an amazing journey. I think you should consider this your first step towards a huge transformation. But it's really once we transform the primary relationship with ourselves, we'll find that our relationships with other people, our work, our income, and just your impact on the world transform. This is going to be the most important work that you will ever do, is this unpacking and unlayering. So I invite you guys, I'm here for you. You can visit asriwellness.com. I'm excited to know what comes up for you in the like as you start integrating these habits and start going deeper and getting in touch with yourself and supporting that inner hero in you and lighting that up. I'm excited to know what comes up for you. And also, if you're interested, we have an 8-week breakthrough program where we really help you integrate that as well as learn and do do a lot of the hands-on work with NLP to let go. So you could reach out to me via email or on Instagram at Kelly Jacob, but definitely reach out and let me know how this all works out for you.